I have finally found a laser projector I love, and I think you will too. The XGIMI Aura ticks every box for me as a dual-purpose home theatre laser TV and gaming projector with pretty low latency. The software is familiar, it's not buggy, the colour profiles feel good to me, and it's easy to get a gorgeous, huge screen, as you can see. If you've been waiting for a laser projector actually worth buying in order to game on and watch movies without too many compromises, this is it. Epic is the one word I would use to describe it. At the time of review, it can be found for around $2,500 in the US or £2,200 in the UK, and I think it still represents the best value laser projector at this price point, despite being a year or so old. But maybe you need more to help you decide than simply taking my word for it. I'm James Bruce, you're watching Make Use of Reviews. Now I'm going to play a 5-second intro, which seems like a great time for you to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. So the XGIMI Aura doesn't depart too far from the expected laser TV form factor. It's an enormous slab at around 24 inches wide and 16 inches deep, sitting about 5.5 inches high and weighing 11 kilograms. But it does have some nice little design flourishes, with an overall convex curvature to the top of the device, as well as the soundbar part pointing towards you in a pyramid shape. At first glance, you almost can't see anything there. It's very subtle, but it's one of those little things that adds a bit of intrigue, invites you to look closer, ooh, what's that? And sets it apart from the crowd of similar-looking laser projectors. It'll look great in your home cinema next to your other pointlessly curvy tech toy, the PlayStation 5. The remote control also has a very premium feel to it, with a full metal body that adds heft, and a latching button to secure the battery compartment rather than a sort of tatty plastic friction slide. In terms of functionality, there's nothing particularly remarkable about the remote other than a dedicated Google Assistant and focus button, but it's responsive and feels nice. XGIMI claims the laser inside the Aura should last around 20,000 hours, which is the equivalent of 8 hours a day usage for 6.5 years, so that's not really an issue I would be concerned with. It'll probably outlive modern civilization at this point. Like all 4K projectors at this price point, the Aura uses pixel shifting technology with a 0.47-inch DMD chip, which means it's projecting a 1080p image really fast at 240 frames a second to create an effective illusion of 4K at 60 frames a second. But by any definition, that's still 4K. You will still see 4K worth of pixels. It's not like 4K compatible but native 1080p. This is the real deal. Brightness by the numbers is 2400 ANSI lumens, which is superb and more than enough for massive projections. Again, as you can see, it's not the brightest laser projector by any means, and on a sunny day, this sort of image size becomes unusable. But smaller projections or darker environments, it's fine. As for ports, you'll find a generous 4 HDMI 2.0 ports for maximum 4K 60 signals. The first of those HDMI ports of which is an ARC audio return channel to send audio back to your AV receiver. There's also a stereo out and an optical if you need it, a single USB port hidden on the side under the power button, and 2 USB ports around the back to provide power for your dongles or whatever you want to plug in. Setup was super easy. Just turn it on, grab an Android device and have Google do it all for you. Your Wi-Fi password and your Google account will all be sorted automatically. Great stuff. Doesn't work on an iPhone, sadly. During setup, you'll also be invited to perform a 4 or 8 point image correction, though I would advise against that because it's a software correction, which means you're always going to be losing resolution and distorting the image, as well as introducing latency, which for gaming matters. There's no manual lens adjustment either, so the size of the projection is dictated basically by how far from the wall you are, though there is a digital adjustment. Again, that's going to reduce the overall resolution that you're using, so don't use that. The XGIMI Aura runs Android TV 10 internally, and everything for the projector is handled via that. There is a button on the remote for quick access to picture settings, etc., so it's not like you have to navigate a complex full Android menu system just to adjust things there. You also don't need to switch to some special app to change inputs, as it'll be found in the top right of the home screen. There's little else to say about the software side of things. It's the same familiar Android 10 that you'll find on any device with a built-in Android TV. And just as with most of those, you'll find a selection of apps that either won't run or won't install, such as Netflix and BBC iPlayer. They are not licensed. So if you want a system that's certified for those particularly picky platforms, just plug in an original Google Chromecast or Roku. To really show what the Aura is capable of, I've placed it on the floor and gone for the largest image size possible. The reason I do this is because at this price point, the XGIMI Aura is competing with 70-inch or larger OLED TVs, which will always reproduce superior color and range, especially black levels. So the only reason to buy a projector is because you want an even bigger screen of 100 inches or more for true immersion. With a stated throw ratio of 0.233 to 1, as you can see, that means in practical terms, the front of the unit, in my case, is 15 inches from the wall, and from that I've achieved a 136-inch or 11.3 feet diagonal image, which is also 120-inch wide. As with most laser TVs, the vertical offset is around 100%, so the further you move from the projection surface, the further the image is going to begin up the wall in a linear fashion. So the only thing limiting me in this room is the height of the ceilings, which is fairly low. So onto image quality. The Aura is HDR10 compatible, but not Dolby Vision, and it claims to cover 90% of the Rec. 709 color gamut. Colors felt superb to me, whether in HDR or just upscaled SDR. Truly vibrant, and that was without any settings tweaks, out of the box, just standard movie mode. In fact, I'd say that SDR content looked much the same as HDR, in that there was perhaps no particular benefit to seeking out HDR-specific content. Now, you might take that as a negative point. Either it's doing a good job with standard dynamic range, or it's doing a mediocre job with high dynamic range. And it's worth pointing out that colors are a deeply subjective matter anyway. Anything with neon in the scene, cyberpunk movies or gaming really seem to pop and let the Aura show itself off to full potential. And since my preferred genre of movies or gaming tends to be sci-fi and fantasy, this suits me fine. However, the color palette isn't always natural looking and can take some getting used to. It tends to run on the cold side, even when you adjust the settings to warm. HDR from an external source is much better though. I think if you're a massive film buff and color purist who wants to see it exactly the way the director intended, you may need to tweak this. As ever, you won't find nearly the same quality of black levels or color accuracy as even a mid-range OLED TV. However, compared to other projectors, I did find the black levels on this to be particularly good. Now, there are 5 color SDR settings to choose from: movie, sports, office, game, and custom. And while motion smoothing is on by default for movie mode, you can easily disable it without needing to create a custom profile. I mentioned in my last laser projector review of the 4-movie theater that I found the image adjustment menu to be overwhelming and frankly confusing, and that was frustrating because I didn't like the image out of the box. In this case, the opposite is true, for me at least. The adjustment menu may actually be a little bit too simplistic for those who want it, with only 1-point RGB color adjustments, for instance, and while that doesn't bother me because I like the default, again, for movie buffs, that might not suffice. Overall, though, I found the image from the XGIMI Aura to be incredible quality, with crisp details throughout most of the screen, with only very slight blurriness in the corners that I could see when I was using, say, the Windows desktop. In normal use, it doesn't really matter. And again, bear in mind, I'm really stretching the screen size to its limits beyond what's recommended, so at smaller sizes, that wouldn't be so noticeable. Brightness seemed to be even throughout, but compared to the source material, darker scenes did tend to lose details in the shadows under HDR mode. It wasn't always perfect. Some content seemed to come across as a little grainy, and I'm not sure why. I turned off motion smoothing as the first thing I ever do because I can't stand it, so that wasn't the cause of it, and it didn't make a difference whether I was using the built-in streamer or from a computer, so something from the built-in image processing was causing that. It's not a huge deal. I don't want to overstate how significant it was, and it didn't happen with everything, so it's difficult to pin down, but sometimes there was a bit of graininess present, which I couldn't figure out. While you can certainly find a better picture quality on a 4K laser projector, it will not be in this price bracket, and you'd be looking to pay at least $500 to $1,000 more. For the price, this is superb, and most people will be absolutely blown away by the image. All right, let's talk about gaming on the XGIMI Aura. While I don't have the equipment to measure latency, what I do have is plenty of experience testing projectors with games, and officially the stated latency in game mode is 35 milliseconds, and that lines up with my experience. If anything, it's a bit of an understatement. I think actually the latency is a bit lower, but in short, I've had an absolute blast gaming on this with all genres, from twitchy online shooters, dungeon crawlers and platform games to relaxed casual games. So latency is particularly important in fast-paced multiplayer games like Call of Duty, and I'm pleased to say I was back at the top of the scoreboard in things like Call of Duty as well as Lego Brawls. So take of that what you will, but that doesn't normally happen when I've played those to test with on laser projectors in the past. Anecdotally, it does feel a lot more responsive than other projectors I've tested in Minecraft dungeons, that sort of thing. And while some gamers will still balk at the idea of 35 milliseconds, it's by no means the best you can get for gaming, but it is acceptable. And if you're primarily buying a laser projector because you want that massive image right next to the wall, then this is as good as it gets. If you don't want a laser, specifically a UST, if you could get by with a longer throw gaming LED projector, then there are options out there with 15 to 20 milliseconds or so. For instance, the BenQ X3000i that you'll find a review of elsewhere on this channel. But as an all-in-one ultra short throw movie and gaming projector, the XGIMI Aura is fantastic. So I had no issues with 4K HDR 60Hz support for PC or PS5. It was detected every time and just worked automatically. However, it's worth noting that unlike some projectors designed for gaming, the XGIMI Aura doesn't support lower resolution, higher refresh modes. So you can't, for instance, downgrade to 1080p HD for 120Hz refresh. That's not a deal breaker for me. By any means, 60Hz is sufficient for all but the most serious of gamers, but you should consider that for your use case. The best test I have for latency is Minecraft Dungeons, which is very twitchy, and I just did not notice any additional latency there compared to the best gaming projectors I've tried, which is very impressive. There was some slight screen tearing, however, but nothing majorly distracting, not enough for me to want to turn on software VSync. As I said, the colour profile looked incredible for things like Cyberpunk, with the vibrant colours really bursting forth from the screen. One other very minor point that I appreciate is that it remembers the settings. So anytime I switch over to PS5 input, it knows to use the game mode, whereas back in the main Android system, it'll automatically revert to movie mode. As an aside, you can't actually use game mode with the built-in Android system, so hopefully you didn't want to play any games on that, which I mean, I don't suppose you would anyway, but just keep that in mind. But anyway, I know that these are such small things, really, but it's those small interface points, the fact that 4K 60Hz works flawlessly, which add up to a frustration-free and pleasurable user experience and help this to stand out against other not so frustration-free laser projectors that I've tried recently. So how about the audio? Behind that pyramidal speaker grill, you'll find 4 Harman Kardon speakers, 2 woofers and 2 tweeters for a total of 60 watts that deliver an incredible sound. No kidding, I haven't felt the need to plug in my external sound system at any point during testing. Of course, if you have one, then you can go ahead and use that ARC audio return channel over HDMI back to your receiver, but I'm confident if you don't already have a sound system installed in your living room, you might not even feel the need to get one. It gets plenty loud with great bass and doesn't seem to distort or lose clarity at those higher volumes. So it's at least sort of mid to high-end soundbar quality. There's a wide stereo stage and it feels like some sort of vocal isolation going on, but I can't find a specific audio setting for that, so who knows. Suffice to say, I've been watching plenty of movies on here and never once felt that it was too quiet or couldn't hear voices because they were muffled. So all good on that front. However, there doesn't appear to be an audio delay setting either, so if you do find some latency on an external device, you better have the functionality on that other device to adjust the latency. So, big question, should you buy the XGIMI Aura? At this price point, even a year on from release, I have yet to find another projector which matches the features and image quality offered here. It's not without faults. Color purists may not be happy with it, but for most people, and for those who want to do some gaming on their big screen too, I think it represents fantastic value. I don't think I'm unjustified in saying that this is the best ultra short throw laser projector so far for gaming, as well as just great bang for your buck. Overall, the image quality is superb to my eye, and nothing beats an ultra short throw projector for the sheer size of image possible, which is, let's face it, why you're buying a laser projector over a big screen TV. It's for the immersion. So if your budget is $2,500 and you've been waiting on a UST laser which performs well out of the box, gives you a huge image, and lets you enjoy some gaming with decent built-in audio, look no further. The XGIMI Aura gets a highly recommended and Editor's Choice Award from me. Hit me up in the comments if you have any questions. Otherwise, hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. Until next time, I'm James Bruce. You've been watching MakeUseOf.com reviews. I'll see you in the next one.